UMAR AHMED, IFL TV, MTK Global. I'm in the final press conference for Brook Zerafa, joined by Eddie Hearn. How you doing, mate?
Very well, mate. Very well. Good to be in Sheffield. I was looking for your boss, you know, to have a long sit down, give me a bit of stick, tell me about past interviews, but we'll do that in a minute. But no, looking forward to Saturday night. You know, a lot of people sort of want to poo-poo things at the moment, and I think Brook Zerafa is a decent fight for Kell to come back to, but I think it's a great card. Josh Kelly against David Avician is a great fight. Fowler with a big step up. John O'Carroll, who is emerging into a right character. I can't wait to take him stateside to fight Tevin Farmer if he can win his IBF final eliminator on Saturday night. Kid Galahad, Kez Ashfaq, etc. So it's a big night for Kell. I think he looks great. You know, he's probably weighing about 153 pounds today, so he could probably make 147 if he wanted to. And he just has that fire in his belly again, you know. And obviously everyone's talking about the Khan fight, but he wants any of those big fights at 147 or 154. This is a final eliminator for Jarrett Hurd. That's another big fight, but right now he looks like a welterweight to me. And when he's on it, and he's 1,000,000% and he's hungry, the 147 limit becomes a lot easier.
What's he saying about the link up with John Fuchs?
I think that, you know, just wanted something a little bit fresher coming out. Don was training a lot of the guys abroad. Kell wanted to be out in Fuerteventura. They've known each other many, many years. He just looks fresh. You know, he's tweaked a little bit in the style. I think he's going to be even more exciting. I think he's going to be setting his feet a little bit more, punching a lot harder. And he's got that aura about him, Kell, right now. That he fancies it. You know, he's talking about Sean Porter. He's talking about Errol Spence. He's talking about fights at 154. And probably about a year ago when I sat down with Kell, I looked in his eyes and thought, you may be done. You know, he was depressed. He was overweight, he didn't have any fire in his belly. Now he's talking about 2, 3, 4 years left in the sport. So get Saturday out of the way, look good, and then move on to what we hope will be Amir Khan. But if not, big fights over either here or stateside.
Well, you mentioned Khan, obviously a lot of talk about him and Crawford.
Yeah.
Where are we at that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't want him to fight Crawford, I want him to fight Kell Brook. So, you know, I've been involved in those discussions a little bit with Bob Arum and obviously Amir Khan, and it's hard for me because it's probably about half the money to fight those guys, which on paper you have to say Crawford is a harder fight than Brook. You know, it's still a good fight. You can't say it's not a good fight, but you know, I just feel like we'd all be letting the British fight fans down if we didn't make Khan-Brook. There's no excuse not to make it. You know, if Amir believes he can beat Kell Brook, he can fight Terence Crawford after. You know, and he'd get double the money because his profile would be even higher. So I think there's still a chance to make that fight. It's 50-50 whether he's going to fight Crawford or Brook. But for me, there's only one choice I want him to take, and that's Kell Brook.
Do you think he's talking about the Crawford fight to get in Kell's head?
Maybe, I did think that in the car on the way up. And I think he also thinks that if he was to lose to Crawford, he could fight Kell Brook. I want to make one thing clear, that ain't happening. If he don't fight Kell Brook next, that fight will never happen. And it will never be the fight that it is now. You know, if Amir was to lose to Crawford or Kell was to lose in a big fight, it's not the same. You know, after Khan lost to Canelo and Kell lost to Errol, I was a little bit worried about the fight then. Since then they've come back. It's still a monster, but they can't go their separate ways here. They have to do it now or never. And you know, I've said to Amir, don't think that the Brook fight's there after Crawford, because it won't be. Because Kell's going to dive into a monster fight himself. And it's too dangerous when you're fighting at that elite level to just presume that everything's going to be okay.
Say the Khan fight doesn't happen, what's Kell looking at, 154, 147?
I can see him moving to 147. I mean, it's still probably the most lucrative division in the sport outside of heavyweights. There's so many great fights. You've got Sean Porter's now WBC champion. Kell's already beaten him. You know, there could be a rematch there.
Thurman's back in the mix.
I mean, I'd love him to fight Errol Spence again. Thurman, Mikey Garcia stepping up.
Danny Garcia
is a great fight as well. So Jesse Vargas with us is a good fight for Kell Brook. So, you know, I'm just pleased to see him happy. You know, because there was a time, particularly after the Errol Spence fight, where he was depressed. You know, and you could see that, and he was a mess, and he weren't focused, and his life weren't really in order. But he's got a spring in his step, and he's a world-class fighter. I believe he can be a pound-for-pound top fighter still, Kell Brook. Okay.
You mentioned the word heavyweights.
Yeah.
Take your mind back to LA on the weekend. First, I want to get your reaction when you heard 115, 111 Wilder. What was going through your head?
that shocked me, and then after that, I actually fancied it would be a draw. I mean, I had Fury winning by 2 rounds. So, is a draw a robbery? No, not really. But Fury won the fight. Do you know what I mean? But if you're scoring it 2 rounds to someone, 1 round the other way, and it's a draw. But in my opinion, Fury won the fight, and in 90% of people's opinions, he won the fight. The draw was not great, but the 115-111 was a joke. And we keep getting this in boxing, right? How can you have 115-111 and then 114-110, which I think ended up being 114-111 or something like that? So you've got one guy by, 4 rounds to Wilder and one guy by 3 rounds to Fury. It's a 7-round swing. There's too much inconsistency. And we have had it multiple times in fights. One the other night in Italy with Scarpa against Joe Hughes. Some guy gave it to Scarpa by 4 rounds. I don't think he won 2 rounds. So yeah, that was one of the reasons I think there's been so much controversy. The draw I think was still the wrong result, but the 115-111 to Wilder was an absolute shocker. It was hard to give him a lot of rounds. He didn't do a lot. He was poor, and Fury was great. And I'm holding my hands up. Fury proved me wrong again. I didn't think he'd beat Klitschko. He did. I didn't think he'd beat Wilder. He should have. So I give him the respect. I give Fury the respect, and the getting up from the 12th was great. I'll say something a little bit controversial because it wouldn't be an interview without it. It actually weren't a great fight. If you watch it back, some rounds, look at the punch stats. There was very, very few punches thrown, but what it was dramatic. With the knockdown in the 9th, which was a weird one, and of course the moment in the 12th was unbelievable, and I give him a lot of respect. I spoke to him yesterday, and I do give him a lot of respect for his performance. I didn't even think the fight would happen because I didn't think he was ready for that kind of fight. I didn't think his body would allow him to go through camp for that kind of fight. I also give credit to Ben Davidson, and I give respect for him because I didn't think he was ready for the big occasion like that. And what he's built with Tyson is a great bond, so I give Ben credit and respect as well. And he's a major player in the division, major player. And it's a brilliant time for heavyweight boxing. Everyone's talking about it. Joshua's not number 1 anymore, is he? That's fine. This is good for Joshua because I want people to question him. He's going to smash them all. Believe me when I say that. He's going to absolutely destroy Deontay Wilder, and I believe he also knocks out Tyson Fury. And if I'm wrong, you can play this one back as well. But that's what I believe. And you'll get them. You will get them. You will get these fights.
I know Wilder's still got the belt, but a lot of people saying why not do Joshua Fury on April 13th?
Yeah, I mean I think that's a valid argument. For us, Josh wants to be undisputed. For history, for legacy, everything. You can't be owning every single belt. And if you ask Joshua a serious question, like who does he want more? The answer would be Fury. But what does he want more? He wants to be undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. So he wants to fight both, and he's up for it, mate. He's hungry for it. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to talk about negotiations that have been happening or conversations that have been happening because I did that last time. It didn't work out too well. So I'm going to go low-key under the radar. I've promised people that I wouldn't be talking about negotiations, and I won't be, because we've got to try and make it happen. Will Wilder rematch Fury? Maybe. Will Joshua fight Wilder? Maybe. Will Joshua fight Fury? Maybe. They're all in play. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But certainly, Fury has options, Wilder has options, AJ has options, and there's never been a better time for the division.
So from what I'm hearing, Wilder's still number 1 priority then?
Yes. Okay. Purely because of the belt, and purely because it takes you to that place in history that can never be taken away from you. Undisputed heavyweight world champion. Joshua has 3 belts, 4 if you count the IBO, and there's 1 to go. So that's what he wants, but he does want to fight Fury, and he's always wanted to fight Fury. That fight is massive.
Even bigger now.
Yeah, and I'd still like Josh to become undisputed champion, then fight Fury. But listen, a lot of things have got to happen. A lot of people have got to agree with what we agree with, and we've got to agree what they want us to agree to, if that makes any sense. So that's difficult, and but we're trying. We're going to do everything that we can to make one of those 2 fights in April. And if they fight each other, then we have to move on and fight White or fight Usyk or fight Miller in America. But make one thing clear: look at Anthony Joshua's record. He's had 22 fights, and Wilder talks about him fighting these low-level guys. He's beaten Klitschko, he's beaten Dillian White, he's beaten Takan Parker, Povetkin. He's beaten, I think, 7 guys that when he fought them, they were in the top 10 in the Ring magazine. So don't worry about his pedigree or his record or his desire to fight these guys. So, but it just got a lot more interesting on Saturday night, a lot more interesting, which is great news for everyone.
Considering what Tyson went through all that time out of the ring and he still beat Wilder in many people's opinion, do you think he'll get better?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I can't give him any more props. I wrote him off. He proved me wrong. He proved a lot of people wrong. One thing that he's got is a great mindset and a great will to win. I have to be honest, when I saw him in Monaco and we sat down, we had a meeting, I talked about signing him, I looked at this guy and I thought to myself, I almost thought, why am I even meeting him? Because he was a state, you know, not just, obviously I know he had his mental problems, but physically. So to even get back to where he's got to is an unbelievable achievement. But then to go to America and put that performance on was, you know, legendary is a strong word, but I'll say I can't give him enough credit or respect, and I'm happy to say it. I thought the performance was great. I thought Wilder was poor. I thought Wilder's too small, and Fury just controlled him. Done what he done, you know, against Klitschko. And, you know, at times he stood with him. It was a much better fight than the Klitschko fight because at times he did engage, and obviously the 12th was ultra dramatic. So, you know, I give him plenty of credit. And I rate Wilder because Wilder nearly had him out in the 12th, and he was behind. Without that knockdown, if Fury doesn't get knocked down in that fight, whatever the scorecards were, he wins and he becomes WBC world champion. Because even if it was a 10-9 round, the draw becomes for Fury. Yeah. So it was just the knockdown in the last that cost Fury, you know. And I think, as you can see by the response, the one thing I'm pleased about, although he's not our fighter, is that he's getting credit. You know what I mean? But I don't feel like he got any credit after the Klitschko fight. But a lot of it was because of his own behaviour, right? And when people talk about, oh, he was robbed, he was this, no, he threw those belts away by his behaviour. Some of it was, you know, unlucky because it was brought on by an illness, and some of it was his own behaviour and the things he's saying. It seems like he's got himself in a great place. He's matured, he's doing all the right things, he's saying all the right things, and he's become a little bit of a folk hero. And good on him, because he deserves it, because whatever you think of the man, he's gone out there and he's shown people, and he's shown me. So, credit to him.
What about the work he's doing for mental health awareness and stuff like that?
It's great. I mean, I'm not sure if he's going to give 8 million quid to the homeless. I saw that in the paper somewhere. But I think that he can be an inspiration, he can be a role model to the people that are struggling, because he's got a great story. And he's had his problems, and he's overcome them. And, you know, you can't knock that. You can't knock that. I still believe that Anthony Joshua beats him every day of the week.
Knocks him out?
I believe he knocks him out 100%. But I may be wrong. But can we find out, please? Because I want to see it, and I think the whole of the public want to see it as well. And I also believe, but I see Fury as a tougher fight now than Wilder, and I didn't before that fight. But I'll tell you, when Joshua gets his hands on Wilder, it ain't going to be pretty.
What about on Fury? How does that go in your opinion?
It's an awkward fight. That's what Fury is so good at. He's technically excellent. He's extremely awkward. He's very, very clever. I don't think he has the power or strength to hold off Joshua. Joshua's not 15 stone 2, a blown-up cruiserweight. That's what Wilder is. Joshua is a big, big man who I believe punches as hard as Wilder. If not, it's close. But he puts his shots together a lot better. He's a better body puncher. He has so much more strength. He's better on the inside. He's better at range. He's better technically. Don't mix up Joshua and Klitschko in terms of a robotic style, because I'm not saying Joshua's as, you know, flary as Fury, but trust me, he's an athlete. And listen, it's a great fight. I might be wrong, but that's what I believe. You know, but I believe they're two very different fights. The Fury fight against Joshua is, you know, it's going to be technical, it's going to be interesting, it's times where they'll stand and trade. Wilder is a bloodbath. Either fighter can get knocked out in that fight, by the way, and it's going to be absolutely brutal. And I back my man every day of the week. But again, this is why we're here. This is why we're interested, because you say something else, or the man on the street says something else, and we debate, we argue, and we want to see it.
Just lastly, what's Anthony said about the fight?
He hasn't said a lot about the fight itself. I think he gives Fury props. He thinks he beats both. You know, he sparred Fury. He thinks he beats him. I think he beats him. The guy's had 22 fights. What's Wilder had now? 41, 42 fights?
Yeah.
He's talking about his resume. His resume's awful. He's had Ortiz and Fury in 42 fights, the proper fights that he's had. But Wilder is dangerous. And I think, like I said, if it was between the men, Joshua would want Fury. But he also wants that belt and wants to be undisputed. He'd take anyone for April 13th. But I think that the focus is Wilder and to become undisputed champion. But don't rule out the Fury fight. But listen, they may rematch. That's a big fight. So there's anything can happen.
All right, Eddie, there's a ton of people waiting to talk to you. So thank you for your time, and catch up soon.
Mate.
Thank you.